All right. Good morning, Keller Williams Prosperity. It's Matt and Mary Beth with you today. We'll be going over tactic number 9. We'll be doing part 1 of this, pages 167 to 183. And it's all about
Yeah.
creating urgency and overcoming buyer reluctance. And one of the things, Mary Beth, that I wanted to really kind of just touch base with you on that I thought was interesting was yesterday we did a class on staging and appraisals and that type of stuff. And then we were on a call with our agent leadership council yesterday, and some of them were on the call, some of them weren't, yet those topics came up. So what we're teaching is actually relevant to what we're going through today.
Yeah, so we're starting to see the signs of a real shift. The evidence is here that there is a shift.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point of the book is it's not necessarily a bad shift. It's just a shift. And if you are in the business and this is your career, then you will just figure out what part of the market you'll be working and grab your opportunity in this shift. But make no mistake that it's not the same market that we were in a few months ago, nor was it the one amazing spring market that we were anticipating for 2020. It's different, right?
It is. And so as we shift now into tactic number 9, let's start by reading the quote by Jim Rohn.
Yeah,
I
he's
love
one of my
this.
favorites.
Yeah, this was actually one of mine too. When I read it, I was like, oh, I love it. He writes, if someone is going down the wrong road, he doesn't need motivation to speed him up. He needs education to turn him around. Uh, and I think that just like hit me when I was reading this because, a lot of things that we've been covering up till this point, and especially as we're going into this chapter,
Yeah.
it's all about being the expert and being able to not push something into doing something, but really being able to educate them and really push them down the right path.
Yeah, oh, you reminded me of something I have over here. I'm gonna get it. It's about more of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Is it over here? We'll get it tomorrow. But it's about doing more. Sometimes doing more of the same is not going to get you. It's not faster and more. It's different. And we're in that time where more of what we've been doing, although it may have been super effective and creating amazing results and evidence that it was the right activity to do, like we said, the ground has shifted, everything has shifted, and we just need to center ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and have clarity on what kind of business we're going to have through this, on the other side of it, and in our future. Because right now, one thing I can say, Matt, is we are, like you said, we are on page 167 of the Shift book. We have covered all of this, and I don't think that I've ever gone page by page the way I'm going through page by page.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, to your point, when we opened, is it's still so relevant to what we're experiencing now in the market.
It is. I think when we're talking specifically about buyers, one of the things that Gary writes on the top of page 168, he writes about buyers when they should have been afraid of paying too much in the seller's market, they weren't, and now that they shouldn't be afraid of paying too much, they are. So they're constantly waiting for that bottom to happen, and potential buyers buy into the biggest myth of the shift, which is they think they can time the market. So that's really on page 168, which I think is interesting because a lot of people think, okay, well, if I time it just right, then I'm going to hit it right when it's at the bottom. When the reality is that's an impossible thing to do.
Yeah. Now, I can say that some people have absolutely just bought at the right time. They bought right before prices surged, or they sold right before the prices dipped. There have definitely been some people who have just kind of fell into the market at the right time and everything works out for them. But this time is not the time to guess. This time is really a time to be in great communication with your clients, buyers and sellers, and really watching the market daily as to what's coming on, how long things are sitting for, and what's available. And then also paying attention to not necessarily the closings right now. The closings are going to dictate a few months ago price, which I'm sure those buyers and sellers are just praying to get to the closing table to satisfy the transaction. And yet the people that are in the middle, the people that are in appraisal time, the people that are in inspection time, it's a real great time to watch those buyers contracts. Maybe, if you're in a market where you do see some under contracts, reaching out to those agents to understand what is happening in a time like this will better serve your clients with real time information on what's going on with the under contracts. And then as far as the sellers, we are seeing a slowdown with that. And yet, if you have to sell and you're going to buy in this market, or if you have to sell because there's a motivation there for you, Mr. Seller, you can always sell. Like I've said before in other sessions, if we were to put any house on the market for $1, it would sell for the market value, because anybody would see the value in $1 for a property with land. So, but to my morning message that I was reading earlier, I was reading a little bit about when the real leader speaks. And in all of this training that we're doing with our agents, I really just want you to hone in on your leadership skills. And like John Maxwell says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It is pure influence. And you can be a great leader and you can be a not so great leader. A not so great leader can absolutely, well, actually, no, you could be a negative great leader, or you could be a positive great leader. If you're influencing people to do something that you want them to do, you're a great leader, and you take the direction, positive, negative, good or evil. So when I was reading in my daily devotional, I was talking about when a real leader speaks, and I want you guys to hone in on this: courage, conviction, character, connection, and credibility. And all the things that we're talking about in your shift tactics lead to those things. Gaining courage. Courage comes through conviction, comes through knowledge. And so even diving into these sessions with us is going to give you great insight as to how to handle a client or how to handle your business. Character, I cannot teach you that. I'll take character over skill any day. And there was a book on that. It was called The Secret. It's not The Secret, The Law of Attraction. It was another book called The Secret. And character over skill any day. And connection and credibility. So if you guys are not out there practicing this, if you're not talking to clients, if you're not talking to agents, you're not going to have credibility in a market like this. Somebody's going to know that you're just sitting in your house, chilling out, not studying the market. And we have all the time in the world right now to do that. So, Matt.
Oh no, I thought you were going to get to the last one, which was credibility, which I think is.
Oh, that's going to build credibility.
I was just saying, and that's going to build credibility. And ultimately, as an agent, the biggest thing that you can do in a shifting market is to understand the market and be able to provide credibility in what you're delivering to your buyer or seller. With that, one of the things that I really like, we were talking about with buyers, one of the things that they struggle the most with is timing. And they feel like they want to make sure they're buying it at the lowest price possible. And the exercise that Gary does on pages 169, 170, and 171, I thought was amazing, because basically what he suggests you to do as an agent is to say to a buyer, okay, let's take out a blank sheet of paper. Tell me, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw it going straight down. Let me know, once you think we've bottomed out, once we bottomed out. So you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And they're not going to know when it's popped out.
They're not going to know.
So then once you start to do the little curve in the line to go back up, that's when they're going to say, okay, wait, that's going to be the bottom. But they didn't know that it was the bottom. So again, as you're going back up on the paper, and this is illustrated, like I said, on pages 169, 170, 171, if you can't follow along. But as you're going back up and you say, okay, let's look at a seller. When do you know that we're at the top? So again,
when should I take that offer? When is that offer going to be the max offer I'm getting?
Correct. What's the max offer? So we're going up, 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 up. And again, until you start to do the curve back down, that person doesn't know that that's, the best point to take an offer. So the point is really powerful to say, you're not going to know. So you're going to have to do what they say on page 172, which is be in that safe zone, which is that kind of middle area, which is like, okay, you're never going to know the bottom and you may never know the top, yet that safe zone in the middle is where most people are going to be. And Mary Beth, you can talk about this too, because I feel like a lot of investors really are good at being in the safe zone. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Well, okay. So to your point, think about mortgage rates, right? Because that's something that often the buyer is waiting, and myself included. Yep. I hear about somebody doing a refinance for 2.75, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Now, the minute I start my process, am I going to get 2.75? Probably not. Yep. I'm probably missed that mark, and yet what's the next best time? Now. So that goes along with what's that Chinese proverb? When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago, if not then now, right? Yep. So with a buyer and a seller, it's literally the same thing. And I love how slow you went with that. A buyer is waiting to get the best buy, and then all of a sudden the market starts to shift and there's less inventory. People are buying it and the prices start increasing, and now a buyer goes, I missed my mark. Mm-hmm. What I can tell you to make sure that your buyer, if your buyer is that buyer, if your buyer is in the market because they want the best deal possible, or you can sense that that's really important to them, and I would question them, what is so important about you getting the best deal? Just want to have clarity on it. What's important about that to you? Tell me a little bit more about that. And it may be that, well, because we can't spend this, we can't, and you're going to start to discover some things if you ask deep questions. However, the best way a buyer can get ready is to get pre-approved, to have those conversations now. I very much encourage any of our borrowers, any of our agents that are listening, to talk to one of our partners, one of our financial partners, because they should have buyer power. And so what is buyer power? Buyer power means I have my money in the bank. I know how much I can absolutely put down on a property. Buyer power means I'm pre-approved, not only pre-qualified. I haven't just spoken to somebody. I've actually sent them over my 1099s, my W-2s, pay stubs. I've had real conversation with somebody who's going to be able to finance a loan for me. And then I've explored different types of loans. If I'm an investor, I'm going to say, I want to know if I have a line of credit. I want to know if I have a construction loan available to me. I want to know where I'm getting my hard money. Now, some of those products have gone away in the temperature in the last couple of weeks, just because they're real risky loans. And so you may have a timeout with some people. And yet, when those loans become available again, isn't your buyer in the best position to actually write an offer and go under contract if they've already got their pre-approval, they're lined up, they have their relationship with their lender? And oh, better yet, what if they have their relationship ready with their attorney also? Because what I find is buyers get into a contract and then all of a sudden they're like, well, who's going to represent me? Oh, I need an attorney now? And I know you agents have told them, this is who you're going to need. Here's your A team. You need an attorney. You need an appraiser. And you don't really control the appraiser, but you'll need an inspector. And how many buyers just take that for granted and don't do that? And then when the right house comes out, they get aggravated because they don't get the offer in time. They can't be as aggressive because they're concerned, because they don't know really what that price would bring them in payment. Yep. And so when we're dealing with buyers, guys, the other thing you have to remember is that $10,000 is not really $10,000. It's maybe $50 a month. It's maybe $40. I mean, we're not talking about $10,000 should not make or break a deal if a buyer really wants a property. And yet, if they're not approved for that amount, that's a different story. If they don't even know if they're approved, then they're making an assumption on where they can go with their contracts, but not based on evidence.
Well, and what you're talking about right now, we're going to get into a little bit tomorrow on page 189, which is the hazards of timing the market. Whereas if you wait and let something go down, you can get it if you're more concerned on the selling end versus the buying end, because most buyers are also selling something too. We're going to be talking a little bit about that tomorrow, but what you're illustrating is really page 189 and 190. But the other thing that you're talking about right now too, that you're hitting on in terms of having a loan officer and having all that mapped out, is really pages 174, 175, and 176, which is where you're talking about buyer urgency, which is being able, being ready, and being willing. So you've talked about really being able. So you're connecting with a loan officer if you haven't already, making sure you're getting pre-qualified. In our office, we have three great partners that we work with, mortgage partners that we work with. So that's really determining the able portion. The ready portion, which is what you kind of touched on. And what we've touched on a little bit is asking the right questions. Why, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, why are you guys looking to move? Okay, well, my husband or my wife just got a new job, and it requires us to move into this school district or into this area. So really honing in on the motivations and the reasons for someone moving really emphasizes the readiness, because in a shift, you want to focus on the people who are truly ready and who often have an actual motive and motivation for moving, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be most likely to actually move.
Yeah, and the point about the investor sector of our business. Mm-hmm. If you are not out there viewing properties now, I'm not saying in this time, I'm not saying get in your car and go drive around and look at properties. However, with the way that people are showcasing properties through their marketing, you can be looking and studying properties through your computer from your house during this time. So if you're working with an investor, if you're bringing them a deal that hits MLS, it's too late.
Yeah.
They've probably seen it. They probably have 10 other agents that have brought it to them. And so if you're working with investors, you need to be searching out those properties. You need to even be digging through and doing some pro formas on 3 families, 2 families to show investors what kind of positive cash flow they could get by purchasing these properties right now. That's going above and beyond and creating some urgency in the buyer that once you figure out that this is a great investment, you're going to tell it to the world. So, Mr. Investor, I'm coming to you with some exclusive opportunities before I go and share it with a bunch of other investors. Well, so that's another great way to create urgency.
Absolutely. Well, and I think to your point, as we kind of move ahead a bit, being the local economist of choice is really critical in creating buyer urgency. And that one thing that Brad Korn wrote, or he was interviewed.
I love Brad Korn. I'm going to have to reach out to him and see if I can get him on a call.
That would be awesome, because we're reading the book right now, which he writes, if you want to be the best buyer's agent, know every home for sale in your marketplace.
Yep.
So exactly what you were saying, when you're working with buyers, you have to be the local economist of choice. And a big part of that is understanding the inventory and understanding what's available in the market, whether you're working with investors, whether you're working with just general buyers. And we talked about this even on the seller end. When you're doing listings, you need to understand what's active, what's under contract, and what's sold, because when you're doing the CMAs, you need to understand the inventory as well. So it works the same way for the buyers. Because
Matt, have you ever seen a property that you're like, wait, why did that sell for so much less than it should have sold for? And we were talking about yesterday, functional obsolescence.
Yep.
And you can't see that sometimes if you have an experience going through a home, or maybe some of this extra video that we have nowadays. And so anyway, you have to get out there. You have to know the properties. As far as for sellers, the other thing is you'll have a seller. What do they usually hold on to? Well, the guy at the end of the street, he sold for $50,000 more than what the comps are. They're typically not even bringing in the guy who sold $50,000 less. They don't want to know about that. They only want to talk about the guy down the street who sold for more than what they thought they can get. And so when who wants to hear that coming from a seller? You should be saying to the seller, and I know, Mr. Seller, you're going to bring up Mr. Seller down the street who sold for $50,000 more. Well, let me tell you why, because I called the listing agent, and here's what happened with that property. The chances are it had something in that home that was of value to that buyer who paid that extra $50,000 because it was specific need of that buyer. Maybe the sister lived next door, and so they were going to be able to have their kids grow up together. That's priceless. And so we do need to do that extra digging when we see the comps go all over the place.
Well, yeah, and I think one thing about being the local economist of choice, as they highlight on 180, 181, is that a lot of buyers think that their expectation in a shift is that they're led to believe that they can buy and sell every 3 to 5 years and make a killing on both ends. So you're buying low and you're selling high. And the reality is you have to coach them into understanding that not going to be the case. You may get lucky, but that's where you have to coach and educate your buyers and sellers on that. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, but I thought that was important to really note.
Well, I want to touch a little bit on the fact that if you're tapping into their why, if you're tapping into the why, you can move anybody. And it might not even be the why of your client to this point. Is you may need to call that other agent who's being a little stubborn trying to put the deal together. In a time like this, would it not be in the seller's best interest, if they have a real need to sell, to take an offer that maybe was not the original number they said that they would go down to? Yes. Now would be the time that if you know your seller has to sell, that you would coach them to get to a point where it's attracting buyers. Now, if they've attracted a buyer because you have an aggressive buyer's agent, I was always a super aggressive buyer's agent. If I had a buyer who was not finding what they want, and guys, I will tell you, this would be that time. You have sellers that are not going to come off their price, or sellers that are going to go on the market at the price that they thought they were going on the market on March 5th, March 10th. And you have agents that just listened to the clients and didn't consult them to get them to price properly. And you have that seller who needs to sell. So my suggestion there is you're calling to the agent, hey, my client, I'm looking above 500. If I know my client can only go to 500, and I'm going to look to 550, I'm going to look to 525. And I'm going to call those agents and I'm going to say, hey, Matt, how you doing? My client is looking for your home looks like it really fits their needs. Has your client denied any offers? And if you tell me no, or if you tell me, we're just going to start some dialogue, because I'm going to tell you a little bit about my buyer. You're going to tell me a little bit about your seller, and maybe we could find a way to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Because that would be the best thing for the buyer and seller. And so sometimes we have to help coach people to get out of their way if their big why is big enough that this transaction should happen.
Well, and when we're talking about coaching people, a big part in, the real estate world, and we're looking, he kind of touches on this on page 182 and 183, as I'm hearing what you're saying, is that people get opinions from their family, from their friends, because everybody thinks that they're a real estate expert. They watch HGTV, they read news on, Yahoo Finance or Google, or,
Or they have their license and referral.
Or they have a license referral. They a lot of people think that they know the real estate market better than the real estate agent. And that's where you have to be able to deliver facts. You have to be able to deliver independent sources. You have to be able to deliver information. The other thing that you can do with that is, as an agent, share success stories of other buyers that you've worked with. Share success stories that was like, look, if I didn't buy now, I would have either lost money, or I would have not have come out on the other side the same way. So it's important to share those successes, because that might just help push some of these buyers off the fence and into actually submitting an offer.
Well, to that point and this is just life, doesn't it seem like a better idea if I tell you, well, Matt, everybody's doing it, Matt.
Yeah.
I just had so-and-so do it, and they da-da-da-da. I just had so-and-so do it. Now, to agents who say, well, I haven't had any buyers in the last couple months, or I don't have, for brand new agents, I've never put a deal together.
Yep.
You should be able to use the stories that we're talking about now, or that you've heard inside your real estate office. You should be able to say, well, in our office, we have clients. If you're part of a brokerage, which 99% of the people who are listening are part of a brokerage, you are all of the transactions that happen in your brokerage are your transactions, because they absolutely, in New Jersey, they belong to the broker. So use those stories. We have clients that have experienced this. We have clients that are doing virtual showings and putting transactions together. We have vacant homes that are getting multiple offers.
A lot of offers.
Yep. Yeah. So if you don't have your own stories, use our stories. We give you permission.
Yeah, well, it's just like, I think it's just like with stats. You can share your own individual stats if you're up, year over year. If you're not, then use the office stats or use, the KWRI Keller Williams International stats. So no matter what, use
Right.
and share those stats and use those to your advantage.
You're inside them, so they
Yeah.
are your stats. Okay, so also with that is, um, once again, is people are real and they're going through real stuff.
Hmm.
So don't get so insulted or offended if nobody's calling you back or texting you back right now. They might just be going through something. They might be dealing with a financial situation. They might be dealing with a health situation. What you can do right now is you can reach out and you could just make sure that they know that you're there for them and that you're there for them when they do pick back up on their home search or their home sale. So understand that people are involved in real life right now,
Yep.
and it's not you they're saying no to, and we're taught this, right? They're just saying no to the service, not right now. And hopefully if you're doing a great job at staying connected and nurturing them, it will be, well, when I'm ready I will reach out, back out to you. So I just want to discipline your disappointment, guys, when you're dealing with people right now in this time. Be very fragile with them, and just be real. Ask great questions, understand why there's a shift in their activity of searching or communicating with you, and ask them if there's something that you can help them through. A lot of people might just be going through some stuff in their own head right now, and you might need to be coming from like a therapeutic
Yep.
listening ear kind of position. So
Absolutely. And I think, so with that, as it's 11:30, we've got a lot to finish with this chapter tomorrow. A couple things that I think, today we kind of really covered buyer urgency, buyer reluctance, and being ready, able, and willing. We covered that. Tomorrow we're going to dive a little bit deeper into tapping into their why, because you did cover some of that, but I want to go into, they talked about having the needs and wants divided
yep.
up and talking about that. So I want to talk about that tomorrow. As well as the 4 strategies to overcoming buyer reluctance. So that's
Yep.
the hazards of time in the market, the opportunity of a down market, narrowing the field, and get while the getting's good, as it says on page 188. So we will touch on tomorrow. Get while the getting's good. So we'll
That's
be
it.
picking that up tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and we will see you then to finish part 2 of tactic number 9. So have a good rest of your
Awesome.
day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
See you guys tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.